Hello, friends. I hope you all are studying well. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I'll be talking about the skull views, the anterior and the lateral one. I'll tell you which all structures are there and how to identify them in the radiographs as well. Okay. In the end, I'll be telling you what kind of questions should you expect in your exam so that there is no surprises to you about the type of questions. So, grab your cup of coffee, sit tight, watch till the end. Let's get started. So let's first talk about the anterior view of the skull. So this picture is from the Netter's Atlas, and this is what I studied for my exam. The bones, they are color coded, so it's very easy to remember. And let's start with the frontal bone. Yeah, this bone is frontal bone. So in the frontal bone, when you see anteriorly, there is this elevation in between the eyebrows, we should say, and that is called glabella. Then, if we move lateral to this, then this is the orbit. On the superior aspect of the orbit is a notch which is called supraorbital notch. Then is they have stated the orbital surface. So this is the whole orbit, okay, and the roof of the orbit. This blue portion which is seen here is the frontal bone anteriorly. Okay, let's move ahead to this green bone, parietal bone, and it is present on both the sides. So anteriorly, it's just this much visible. This is called the coronal suture between the frontal and the parietal one. Okay, then let's move to this red bone. This red bone is temporal. It is temporal bone, this bone, and this bone. So nothing much to talk about here in the anterior view for this. Important bone anteriorly is one is this zygomatic bone. So zygomatic bone is this kind of bone. This is the zygomatic zygoma or the body of the zygomatic bone, and then it has few processes. So the one which goes up and joins with the frontal bone is called the frontal process. The one which moves back and goes to the temporal bone is temporal process, and this is the maxillary process. Okay, this is the zygomaticofacial foramen. This zygomatic bone forms in the orbit, it forms this lateral wall. Yeah, I hope this is clear now. So this is zygomatic process. Just remember the colors, visualize, memorize this picture, and whenever you have to mark or you have to tell which bone is at which place, then you can easily derive it, right? Next comes is this big green bone. This big green bone is maxilla. This is the alveolar process which contains the teeth. Okay. This is the infraorbital foramen. It is below the orbit, so it is called infraorbital foramen. The process that goes and meets this zygoma is zygomatic process of maxilla. Okay. It also contributes to form the orbital surface, as you can see here. Then one of the process, it goes up lateral to the nasal bone. This orange is the nasal bone, so it goes up lateral to the nasal bone and meets this frontal bone, so it is the frontal process. Okay, and this is called ANS, anterior nasal spine. That is the protruding part in the maxilla, which will be also considered during the CEF readings. So this is that ANS process. This orange one is the nasal bone, which has maxillary bone anteriorly, superiorly. It meets the frontal bone. Okay, nasal fractures are most common fractures which may occur because of its position. Let's move ahead and reach here in the sphenoid. This yellow bone which is seen here is the sphenoid. This is the lesser wing of the sphenoid. This is the greater wing of the sphenoid. Can you see this purple bone here? This one. This purple bone is lacrimal bone. So we are done with this lacrimal bone. Let's move ahead to the ethmoid bone. Which is the ethmoid bone? Ethmoid bone is this gray bone. This gray bone which extends here in the nasal cavity as well. This is the ethmoidal bone. This is the orbital surface of ethmoidal bone because it's in the orbit. So this is the perpendicular plate, it is going perpendicular, and this is the middle nasal concha. Okay, if you look again on the orbit, then superiorly there is frontal bone. Here comes the sphenoid bone. Floor is made by the partly by the maxillary bone. Then this is the zygomatic bone. It has zygomatic also contributes to the orbital orbit. This is lacrimal and this is ethmoid. So all these bones, they form the orbit. Let's do the inferior most last bone, that is mandible. Yeah. So this is the, if we view mandible anteriorly, we will see this is the ramus, then body, then this is the mental foramen, these are the mental tubercles, and this is mental protuberance. These are the things which can be viewed anteriorly in the skull. Next video which I'm working on is how to get temporary registration with GTC. I have secured a post as a dentist without doing worry with NHS. I'll tell you how to get this temporary registration step by step. So I'll consider everything and I'll discuss this in the next video. If you like this topic and if you consider seeing these, then consider subscribing to this channel and click the bell button so that you are notified. And don't forget to like this video. Thank you. So let's talk about the posterior anterior view on the radiograph. What all is visible? In the radiograph, what is important is what all sinuses do you see? Can you see this sinus? This is frontal sinus. Okay. So this small circle which is seen here is frontal sinus. This is the superior orbital fissure. This fissure. This is superior orbital fissure. Okay. This is the lesser wing of sphenoid bone. Okay, and this is petrous part. The radio opacities, they are because of the radio density of the bone. This is the petrous part of the temporal bone. Here this grayish black region is seen, which are the mastoid cells, because air is there, so it is more black. This is the nasal septum. Okay, and this is the nasal cavity, and here is lateral to this is the maxillary sinus. This is the whole orbit which is quite visible here. Okay, this is the foramen rotundum. Okay, so this is what all is seen here. Let's move ahead and you can see inferior nasal concha here. What is normally asked and which we do not know is, we as dentists, we have not done in our graduations, is what is seen this radio density or whiter portion. This is C2, dense C2. This is important to remember. Okay, and here is the excess body, that is the cervical vertebrae which are there. So this is the projection of body of excess, and then comes, and this is the lateral mass of atlas. Okay, so the changes produced here in the maxillary region is because of the cervical vertebrae C1 and C2. This is body of excess, this is lateral mass of atlas, this is C2. Then in the mandible, we know ramus, angle, and body is there. And all this is seen in the PA view. The questions which can come here is number one, it can be like foramen in bones and skull. Number two is structures passing through. Okay, which structure passes through which foramen. Number three is labeling. So for labeling, what is important for you is, first, how to do labeling. So first is you should know which view is being shown. Okay, which view is being shown. Next is which bone is it. Then you deduce the bone, and then what are the other foramen or other important structures, foramen or structures related to that bone. That's all for now. Keep watching, keep studying. Good luck, guys.